to Tracking Rock Part Dos. Got my good buddy Menno Verbaten joining me today.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Excellent, thank you.
Cool, cool, cool. We are, here's the thing. We've got the drums from last week from Abel. And then this setup today, you're probably going to see Oscar go in and out of the our frame a little bit. This setup today is one way that I like to do rock bass. It's not the only way, but it's one that works really well. And then there's one or two extra little things. Someone asked me about a subkick on a bass, so we decided to throw it on. It's actually kind of cool. But what we're doing today is we're going for a nice rock tone, you know. We're not looking for that super aggressive distorted thing, but we want the vibe of the amp. This amp is kind of cool because it is a little gritty, but we're going for something that's got a nice... Hi, Oscar. He's going to pop his head in and out the whole time. Right, buddy? Right. Go ahead. And so we're looking for something that has a good bottom, a little bit of aggressiveness, but not too much, and that's kind of what we have here. So, and that's one reason why I wanted...
Why you wanted Oscar?
Ernesto? Can you come grab Oscar? Ladies and gentlemen, Oscar.
Come on, Oscar.
Come here. Go with Ernesto.
He almost ate the bass.
I know. So anyway, Menno and I, we go back a long time. I think we did our first tour together in, what, 99?
1899.
1899, yes. We look really good.
Yeah.
I like that better than the 1999. We look really good. So we've worked together on and off, on the road, in the studio. He was actually you're the bass player on this track, right?
I think I was.
Yes, you were. You did the whole album, actually. Which is one reason I wanted to get him back in here. Plus, he's one of my favorite rock bass players, and this amp is just fantastic to record rock bass on. And speaking of the amp, why don't you tell me a little bit about this amp and what's so great about it?
Well, the amp, I think you meant the cabinet. The amp is awesome. It's like probably like mid to early 90s Ampeg. Had it for a long time. And as with many old Ampegs, it just has that grit. It has that, you know. The cabinet, however...
This is cool.
I got secondhand at Black Market Music. If you remember Black Market Music,
totally.
La Cienega, really cool used music store. And the previous owner of this was Cliff Williams, bass player of AC/DC. So it has rock magic built into it.
There's mojo built right into that sucker.
Right there.
And it does sound good. You have a very kind of specific EQ setting.
Yeah.
And a reason why.
I like my mids. Mids really cut. So I always crank the mids. You can see it here. Here it's not too bad, not cranked too much because you don't want to completely overdrive it. You still want it to have some body, so you want some lows. I usually, when I record, try to go for very new strings so you get that crisp, high end. So as you can see, that's all...
So we're actually and I've got some screenshots we'll pull up here once we get in the control room, but there's a lot of 800 hertz being pushed, which is like 8 to 1K is a great, 800 hertz to about 1K is a great place on bass to get some real punch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
and
punch.
this has plenty of punch.
The punch cuts through the mix.
Right.
So.
Yeah, instead of boosting low, which is a lot of time you want to hear more bass, sometimes you just need that mid-range that cuts through a mix more than you need more low end.
Yeah.
Having said that, we're going to get plenty of low end out of this amp. So what I'm using, and this is, like I said, this is pretty common. We'll change things depending on style, but when we're going for just good out, kind of maybe, this song is AC/DC meets Buck Cherry, somewhere in that area. I'm most likely going to use a condenser and a dynamic. And what I have today down here, we've got a Heil PR30, which you guys know I love on toms, snares. It's a good vocal mic too. But I love it on bass. And this thing is placed directly in the center of the dust cap. Up here we've got an AT4047 large diaphragm condenser. And that one we've taken, so if the dust cap is here, we've put it kind of on the edge. So it's partially on the dust cap and partially on the outer part of the speaker. So we're not, I'm looking for the grit kind of here, and then I'm looking for this to maybe get a little bit of that grit because it's a condenser and has extended top end, but I'm also looking to catch more of the low mids and the low end with that. And it works quite well. Those two mics together really, and we're done. It sounds fantastic. However, we are taking a DI signal, a clean signal, for later. If we needed a reamp, or sometimes you may hit a part of a tune where it's too gritty and too dirty, we can always use the clean DI to kind of soften things up a little bit. Or like I said, it could be reamping. Or if we need real grit, we might run the DI through a Sans amp or something like that and just blend a little bit in, and then we'll get super aggressive. Now, a while ago, I can't remember what broadcast we were talking about it, someone asked about a subkick on a bass. And you know what? I'd actually never tried it. So today, when we were setting up last night, we're like, you know what? Let's throw the subkick up on there. And this thing is, the center of this, it's a little bit off axis from this top speaker right here. And it was actually much cooler than I expected. I thought it was just going to be this low, unusable
really
tone.
gave it some body.
Yeah,
It was
it
nice.
thickened things up quite a bit. Now, without it, there's going to still be plenty of mojo going, but you add it in there. I don't know. It was cool, so I thought we'd throw it in since I was asked about it, and I had never done it. Why not try something new? That's one rule I have. Every session, try one thing different. Just one thing. So I think we should hear some of this stuff. Now, we're gonna go through all these sounds real quick. We'll see what we've got, and then we're going to do some track to the actual track. So we'll lay it down with Abel.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's go do this sucker.
All right, I'm going to start. You pull up the photo of I think one of them has the PR30. And you can even see the outline of the speaker a little bit. That mic is right up on the cab, and it is directly in the center of that speaker. Now this is our grit microphone. You want to go play a little bit? Cool. So you can see there's a lot of nice grit going there. It's got some punch. There's some low end too. It's PR30, so it's going to have a nice, the low mids in it especially are going to be really nice. Do you like the bass tone, Oscar?
He's
Awesome.
thinking about it.
He doesn't know yet. When he's impressed, then we know we're doing okay. Now I'm compressing both the 4047 and the PR30 a little bit. And I'm using on this PR30, go ahead and play that again. Yeah, do the chorus. Off. Boom. So what I'm doing is I have the PR30 going through one of the Toneluxes here. And I'm going in this over compression mode. One of the cool things I like about this compressor is you can get kind of crazy in that mode, and that it thickens things up a little bit without robbing it of all the tone, and you can really hit this sucker hard. My tack is about 2 milliseconds, and the release is I have it set super fast just to get out of the way, and it's 100% wet. I like the beef it adds a little bit, and I like the fact that it will help kind of control some of the dynamics around the runs without totally choking the tone out of it. Now the 4047, let's go to that sucker. Here, play the verse again. So with that, you can hear we've got a lot more. There's still a little bit of top in there. It's not completely. I love you, pal. But we got to get through this broadcast, buddy. All right, off, pal. Go sit with Ernesto. he's just not having it today. He's very attached today. So the 4047 is, because it's a little on the edge of the dust cone, not so far out to where it's muddy, because I don't want that. I like some of the slap that it gets, but it also, the 4047 just has a great tight low end on it. So now when we put those two together, well, first off, it's running through a warm audio. I don't know if we can see that down here. Yeah, you can see it. It's going through a warm audio WA76 with my attack. Actually, I'm running everything at noon because I don't want to clamp the low end out too much, but I also want it to stay on a little longer just to kind of keep the bottom end part of it a little bit more consistent, whereas with the Tonelux and the PR30, it's getting in and getting out. So it's like going to help kind of accentuate the eighth notes a little bit. It's going to be more aggressive, actually. And I don't want this, I like the sound of this warm is nice and fat. So play that again. I'm going to turn this on and off. It's like we're on late night TV. It's like bam, done. So you can hear when the warm kicks on, it actually does. That's it's exactly what I expect out of 1176. Really, it's got a color to it, but it's also just kind of contained in the bottom without clamping. I'm not going crazy here. I'm actually leaving myself some room later to where probably in the mix I'm going to sum all these tracks together. And it's just going to come out one bass track, and then I'm probably going to compress and maybe even EQ a little bit more. But the tone, oh, you know what? We're missing the most important piece here. I got way ahead of myself. And I see a couple questions that we'll get there, but right here, tell us about this.
Well, it's a Fender Jazz, American Standard, a 98. Apparently it's a good year. I've been playing it since 98. I love this bass. It records real well. It plays well. I put some fairly new Diodario 45 to 105 Pro Steels on there. I really like those strings. I got both pickups going, my tone knob all the way up. I usually do that when my strings are new, so you really get that new string sound. Dunlop 1mm nylon. And that's pretty much it. If you're wondering why, what's going on here, the knobs just fell off. And I kind of like it. It kind of fits the whole theme of the bass, so I got used to it. Instead of, this, I do this. And that's it. Everything else except for the pick guard, the mirrored pick guard, is pretty much stock. And there's a hip shot on there, which I shall not be using today.
For me personally, a Fender Jazz bass it is rock. It should just be called a Fender rock bass.
Yeah, I know. It's great. A P bass or a jazz bass. I prefer the jazz bass a little bit over the P bass.
Yeah, if you forced me to pick one over the other, I'd be the same way. There's just something about the attitude of a jazz bass that I like for most rock. But a P bass the same. There's a lot of nice basses out there, obviously.
Absolutely.
But man, if you got a jazz and a P bass,
you're good to go.
Your life is good.
A jazz through an Ampeg.
Yeah. It's rock and roll, dude.
Rock and roll.
Totally rock and roll.
You're good to go.
So that actually, that's a very important piece of this because that's where, the amp and everything, as cool as it is, a lot of the tone is coming from you and your choice in strings.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Because that's a lot of our brightness and what you're getting from the pick on the string. There's our aggressiveness right there.
Yeah.
Then we accentuate that a little bit with compression. I'm not EQing anything. Everything you're hearing is actually the EQ from the amp. Hey, Ernesto, can we throw that one up? How had to go. He's teching for Shane Gallus today, so he's over at the Baked Potato, so Ernesto's pulling double duty. So throw that up. So here's what's going on the graphic EQ. Unfortunately, I didn't get a better picture of the other EQ. But you can get an idea that you're pushing everything.
Yeah.
We're not pulling here. We are going for some serious.
Yeah, and since this is more of a rock AC/DC type vibe, it's still fairly moderate. If I'm playing metal, literally it's 11 all the way. I told you yesterday, if you turn that gain up, because the gain, you can't see it, but the gain is almost all the way down. You turn that gain.
2.
Yeah. You turn that up to like 4 or 5, and you got free distortion.
Right.
It's awesome.
Which could be
Amp distortion, which is the best kind.
Oh, I totally agree with you. Totally agree. And that's the surprising thing is the amp actually isn't that loud.
No.
It's not that loud in the room. Cab specs. Tell us, what is in that cabinet?
That's a 410.
We got, 410.
10s.
Now, why do you like 410s?
It gives you a tighter sound. You know, it's easier to control. The 15s are nice. They get that big oomph, but they're really hard to control. So if you want a good punchy rock tone that cuts through the mix, 10s for me are the way to go. 410s or 810s. That's it's my jam.
I kind of like the 410 actually because it does stay tighter. So if you do end up pushing the bottom end, it doesn't get woofy.
No.
You know,
That's
which is
what
cool.
I like about it too.
And 8, that's a lot. That's a lot of 10s, man.
Mm-hmm.
8 10s, that's
Yeah.
a lot.
Not good for your back.
No. And then there's that. All right, let's move through the last couple things. First off, the DI. Now, like, I'm not using the DI today. I'm pulling it because I usually always do, just in case. Or there are sessions that if we're not doing an amp, especially if we're doing an old, like James Jameson thing, we're gonna go straight in. But I am capturing it. So, and this is clean. You play just a little bit of that verse again. So there's the clean tone. It's not getting any compression, no EQ. It's just, I was actually checking my levels, and I'm running everything around -18. And that's important. We're going to do some gain staging at some point in the next month or so, but there's no reason at all to ever record up here at 0 dBFS. Stay away from it. Leave yourself headroom for many reasons, besides, digital peaking. But there's also, if you're using outboard gear or plugins modeled after outboard gear, it's not expecting 0 dBFS. Around -18, you're in that 0 dBVU area, and that's what it wants to see. So it also leaves yourself headroom for mixing. So that's where we're running today. So that's our DI. So we got one last thing. Now this was cool. This is subkick, and this subkick is a homemade one. I believe, Ernest, were those Teledyne speakers we had? We had these old pair of passive Teledyne speakers that we had in the old studio, and they were cool, but they weren't, we liked the Yamahas that we eventually got better, so I decided to pull the sub out of one of them. And this, unlike the NS10 one, which has a peak around 78 to 80 hertz, this is lower. This is below 30, or below 50. I think it's around 47 hertz where it's peaking. So we're getting bottom in with this guy. So let's hear that. Just the subkick.
It's beefy.
I mean, it's not what I expected to hear from the subkick, actually. There's still some articulation on it, but it's just the low end on it's huge. Now, combination-wise, this would be one of those things where it's totally up to whatever you need for what you're tracking. I would most likely, like I am here, which we're tracking everything separately. When I go to mix, I would sum it all together, but then this allows me to kind of blend things or maybe only use the sub in parts or maybe not at all. But let's hear a couple combinations. So you want to just loop the verse for a minute, and I'm going to start with the PR30, then I'll go PR30, 4047, then I'll mute the 4047 and go PR30 and the subkick, and then I'll pull all three of them on. So just loop that verse. Go for it. Boom. So we're going to play this thing down a couple times now, maybe 2-3 times if we need it. Get a good take we're happy with. We're going to hear this take is just going to be PR30 and the 4047.
So let's do. You got one more in you. That's actually pretty good.
I'll do another one, yeah.
Now I'm gonna pull the sub kick on this. So we'll go PR30, 4047, and I'm gonna add the sub kick in on the when it hits the second verse. So we'll see what that adds.
Ooh.
Nice, nice.
You gotta always do this at the
You
end
gotta
of the
have the
song.
horns. Without the horns, it's not rock and roll.
It's not rock and roll.
Now, one thing I do want to mention is the setup here at the studio. We're in the control room, obviously. The amp is out in the live room in my favorite spot of the room for especially bass. There's just one spot that just tends to sit better with low-end stuff. Now, we have a tie line set up here, which I don't think I can get this far enough out of the way. I don't know if you guys can see this down here or not. But down here, we have a set of mono tie lines, stereo tie lines, and some speaker lines that go into the ISO booth and into the live room. So we can, you know, like this, didn't want to have him sitting out there with it. It's pointless. So we wanted him in here. So he's running into this tie line, the mono, it's coming out the mono tie line in there and then plugging into the amp. We could also do it, which you'll see next week when we do the guitars, we'll probably have the heads in here. And we have speaker lines, so we can go out of the head, through our speaker lines, and out to the cabinet. It makes things very convenient. And I'm running our signal chain today for the bass. Obviously starts with Menno, goes through the Fender Jazz, into the Ampeg. Then I'm bringing it back in here and I'm patching into my Tonelux MP5As, which I love for bass. These things are fantastic for low end, and they also have a little bit of attitude to them that I liked for the rock thing. And then the PR30 is going to the Tonelux TX5C. The 4047 is going through the warm WA76. The DI, nothing. And the subkick, nothing. Which I think, kick that subkick on, like, things kind of blew up my headphones. I may start doing that all the time now. Menno, dude, you rule. Thank you so much for coming and doing this again.
Absolutely, a pleasure.
I haven't got to play with you, but I got to record you, so it's awesome. So now we've built this up with Abel. We've got our drum track laid down. We've got our bass. So we've got the, most of the rhythm section done. Next week, Ernesto's going to be doing guitars. We're going to cover. There's more than one way to do stereo guitars. What we're going to do is show the way that we like for this song, because we've already worked on it. We already know what we're going to do. So we're going to show you one really good option for getting good, just kind of good rock and roll stereo guitars to lay on top of this stuff. And then Brian's going to come in in probably a month, and we're going to do the vocals on this tune as well. So we're going to finish this sucker off. It'll be cool. But you guys, thank you for joining us today. And we'll see you. Yeah, horns, baby. Rock and roll. And we'll see you next Wednesday. Let me know if you got any questions. Go to recordingninjaworkshops.com. Sign up for the mailing list. Drop us a line. And as always, happy recording, everybody. We'll see you next week.